Om.
Om.
Om. Om.
Om Shri Sai Ram. Offering our humble pranams at the lotus feet of our beloved Mother Sai, we begin our today's Parayanam session. It's my privilege to introduce you all to my senior brother T.N. Giridhar for this Parayanam session. Brother T.N. Giridhar originally hails from Vizag in Andhra Pradesh. Before joining Swami School, he did his schooling in Vizag. He graduated from the Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning after completing MBA in 1992. On Swami's instructions, he joined a financial services company in Mumbai. He built his career in investment banking and currently he's based out of London. Brother Giridhar is involved in the Sai Seva activities right in Mumbai as well as in UK. Currently, he's a serving president in Mill Hill Sai Center in UK. Brother Giridhar's association with Bhagwan begins from his parents. His parents are been devotees of Swami for last 6 decades. Now we request Brother Giridhar to start and share with us the experiences that he had with Swami.
Om Shri Sai Ram. Jadip, you can hear me?
Yes, Giri, you're audible.
Okay. Om Sahasrashirsha Purushaha Sahasrakshas Sahasrapat Sabhumim Vishwato Vritva Atyatishtad Dashangulam. I offer my very humble and loving pranams at the divine lotus feet of our beloved Mother Sai, our beloved Swami. These opening lines from Purusha Suktam have a very interesting memory for me. So I wanted to share that along with the significance of this very important shloka, opening shloka of the Purusha Suktam itself. Most respected elders, and I see a lot of familiar faces. My dear brothers and sisters, a loving Sai Ram to all of you. It's indeed a great privilege for me to be given this opportunity to share some of my experiences with Bhagwan, or more correctly put, the experiences that Bhagwan has given me, has blessed me with, to help me in my journey on the path that he has chosen for me. As Jaideep said, my family has been very blessed and privileged to be with Swami for the past 6 decades. My grandmother first went to Bhagwan in the year 1960. And from them, my mother got to know Swami. And so I was born into a family that already believed Swami is God. But each person has their own journey. Each person has their own set of karmas. And so my journey started, although I first visited Puttaparthi, I first had a darshan of Bhagwan when I was, I think, about 7 or 8 years old. My journey with Bhagwan and my interest in Swami started much later. So it was in the second year of my engineering, at the end of the second year of my engineering, when I suddenly felt an urge to see Swami. And that was the first time that I had asked for wanting to see Swami, to go to Puttaparthi. And so my parents and my grandmother were so excited, and they were so happy at that time that without even bothering to wait for a reservation on the trains, they decided to start the next day morning, just in case I would change my mind and say, no, I'm not interested in going. So we ended up going to Puttaparthi, and I think that was the year 1986 or 87. I think it was, 87. 1987. So a year after the MBA program started in Puttaparthi. And as every time we went to Puttaparthi, we would normally stay in what was called the Ganesh shed. I mean, that was where my grandmother, because she knew a lot of people and she was an old timer, she would be given a place there. So that's where we would end up staying. But this time we were given some other place, accommodation somewhere else. And next to me, there was this one boy who was trying for admission into the MBA program. And he did not get into the MBA through the regular entrance exam. So he was waiting there to pray to Bhagwan and to see if he could get in. His brother was already a student, was doing undergrad. So he wanted to get in into the MBA program. That's how I got to know that there is an MBA at all. Excuse. So that's how I got to know that there is an MBA program in the institute. So that got us thinking, because from my very young age, my mother wanted me to study in Swami school, but it never happened. So I was told that when I was in, I think for 4th standard, she asked Swami about admission into Swami school, and Swami just said to her, can you be without him? And she said no. So there ended that discussion. And then again she tried, I think for 7th standard, same situation. So it didn't work out, basically. So it's been a long time prayer of my parents that I should study in Swami's school or college. I should be Swami student. But it just did not work out until then, because after my 12th standard, I went into engineering. And so we thought that there's nothing more I could do. So when this MBA program came up, that seemed like a very nice a ray of hope from our perspective. And so we decided to, then of course things happened, which I will come back to later on, which prompted me to, which ended up resulting in me going and becoming a Swami student. And since the time that I joined the institute, I think my relationship with Swami went on a very different trajectory from that point onwards. And so when I kind of coming into today's times, when I think about the current situation around the world in terms of all this coronavirus and all the difficulties that we are having, I was thinking about what is the lesson from this whole corona situation that we have? What is the message? And I was thinking, at least, from my limited understanding and my perspective, I feel that the world had become too selfish, thinking about individual welfare rather than collective good. And this coronavirus has reminded us that our welfare is linked to that of people around us. We are only safe if the people around us are safe. So it's a painful lesson. It's been, in one sense, a very costly lesson from the human life perspective. But it's an eye-opener for people to realize the true value of Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. We say it after every bhajan, we say it after every program, but now it is time for us to realize the significance of this one. I think the second and very important lesson is to be grateful for everything that we have. If we look around in India or even in the UK or US, there are so many people who don't have the same level of comforts, the same ability to deal with the challenges that these lockdowns have imposed. We should be grateful for all that we have. We have food to eat, we have the hunger, we have the ability to digest. We should be grateful for all of this. And of course, I feel we are really blessed to be able to spend time in the thought of Swami, and engaging in listening to stories in the Bhagavatam. So with this context, I was thinking about what are the things that we fundamentally need. And I think the two things that come to my mind are faith and gratitude. These are like the twin legs that we walk on. These are the essential life breaths. And as they say, Swami has given us the perfect start for our life. Getting the right start is an important determinant of success. And so a race well begun is a race that will end well. So for us, things have started well. Swami has put us in the right family to begin with, in the right atmosphere, a divine atmosphere. And next, he drew us to his lotus feet. Obviously, we didn't know who Swami was until he called us to him. I was talking about my grandmother and how she first came to Swami. Circumstances caused her to come to Bhagwan. She had a health issue at that time, and no one, no doctor could cure. No other. She went to a number of saints and sadhus and those sannyasis. Anyone who would give vibhuti, she would go to all of them, but nothing worked for her. And then when she went to Swami, contrary to her expectations of what people said to her, that Swami will give an interview, Swami will create vibhuti, none of that happened. I mean, Swami just looked at her 3 times, stood in front of her, and when she came back home, she was cured. So, that is how her introduction to Bhagwan was. So Swami maybe created the circumstance, but provided the solution for whatever the karmas that she was otherwise meant to undergo. We would have been left to our karmas if it was not for Swami, who drew us to his lotus feet. And, for some, with most of us, I'm sure that is true. We almost sometimes behave like we are doing Swami a favor when we call ourselves his devotees, when we come to him. So in the beginning, we throw challenges, we throw tests at him. We say, Swami, if you do this, then I will believe you. If this happens to me, if I get this job, or if this life event happens to me, then I will believe you. I will believe that you are God. So dutifully, Swami does all these things. Do we accept and then completely surrender? No, we don't. We keep asking for more proofs. Every time life throws a challenge at us, we go back to Swami and say, show me, this is one more. Swami, do this one for me. And he keeps doing it. So we keep throwing back every time we have a challenge. We keep going back and say, Swami, if you love me. The question of why does this, if you love me, come in at all? And therefore, Swami says faith is very important. I remember one occasion when somebody, one of the students asked Swami, how do we develop unwavering faith in you, Swami? And in a way that only Swami can provide that kind of an insight, Swami said, if it is wavering, then it is not faith at all. So in Swami's view, faith is binary. Either you have it or you don't have it. So, and then another occasion, one of the boys asked, Swami, is it good to have blind faith? Swami said, faith is blind. So when we say blind, at least my understanding is it is not something that is subject to reasoning. Faith is beyond the realms of reasoning. So the question is, how do we develop that kind of faith? Swami gives us all of these little experiences. Not that these are required to build that faith. Faith is either there or it's not there. We are blessed to have faith in Swami, but we have to do our bit to nurture it. That's just how I look at it. So I'm reminded of this one story of a tightrope walker, which I think quite well illustrates, how our sort of so-called faith in Swami is. So there is this, two towers that are connected by this rope, and there is a rope walker who is walking from one of these buildings to the other one, with obviously, the ground far down below. And he had his child on his shoulders. So the onlookers and people were watching open mouths. They were aghast at what is happening. And they kept clapping and encouraging him. So finally, he made it to the other end. And there was rapturous applause. They said, wow, very good, excellent. And this little boy then says, do you think my father will be able to take me back to the other end? They said, yes, of course. Do you think he will safely reach the other end? They said, yes, of course. We believe you. We are willing to bet on you. So at this point, the father says, okay, since you have so much belief in me, then give me one of your children and I will take the child to the other end. And there was pin drop silence. Nobody was willing to come forward and quote unquote risk their child. See, this is the dilemma, or this is the situation a lot of times we face with Swami. We believe in Swami, but do we have complete faith in him? We believe Swami is God. Do we have that complete faith in him that he is omnipresent and he is here right now with each one of us? We believe Swami is God, but when we have a challenge, do we have that complete faith in him that he will take care? Because Swami has said on numerous occasions, Nammi Chedinavadu Ledu, which means anyone who has believed or who has put his faith, that's the right word, anyone who has put his faith has never been let down. Swami said this on numerous occasions. But we still have our worries and doubts. If we are a genuine, true devotee, why do we worry? I mean, if you ask me today, I have worries, a lot of things that I worry about. Why? And probably, one of the examples of someone like that is just myself. Take this situation of speaking. Every time I have to speak, I have spoken in several places across, in so many countries, so many times in front of Swami, and yet every time I have to speak, I do get nervous. To the point that Swami once said, why do you get so nervous when you have to speak? He says, just look at me. Do like me. He says, when I have to speak, and this is Swami saying, Swami said, when I have to speak, I stand up, look at everybody, and I start speaking. He says, you should also do that. Speak from your heart. So when Swami says just get up and speak, he doesn't necessarily mean speak like him. Obviously, He's omnipresent, he's omniscient, he knows what everyone is thinking, so he's answering and addressing all of their queries. But essentially what Swami means is, in our today's language, we rely so much on the cloud. And so if the connection with the cloud is intact, then we get all the data, the internet is working. So likewise, let the internet start working is essentially what Swami was saying. And sometimes we confuse being a devotee for a long time to be the same as having strong faith. So someone who is a recent devotee is considered as not having sufficient faith. And this is a fairly common stereotype that we have. So I think it was either in 2005 or 6 when Swami blessed me with an interview. I said, Swami, you have to please bless my wife to have a strong devotion towards you. I didn't say strong devotion. Me the bhakti undali, devotion towards you, Swami. And immediately Swami said, she is fine. Nuve, doubting Thomas. Why am I a doubting Thomas? Because I keep worrying about things. I don't have that faith in him that he will definitely take care of whatever and every situation. And Swami has, over the years, given numerous instances, illustrations, supporting evidences of that. Because, the doubting Thomas is someone who said he will not believe until he experiences. So Swami very kindly and graciously gave me enough and more experiences. So I started talking about this Sahasra Sirsha Purusha, the shloka from Purusha Sukta. So the story behind that is, when I joined the Institute for MBA, I was an outsider, but someone figured that I could chant some, the only thing I knew was Purusha Sukta at that time. So someone in the morning session realized, one of the teachers realized that I could chant this one. So they very graciously, very kindly gave me an opportunity. So I was told to that I would be chanting Vedam at the start of Swami's discourse on one of the days of the summer course in 1990, because that's when the summer course restarted. So that day, when we were on the side stage, Swami came there and he said, he didn't ask me, I was one of them there. Swami asked, Amy. So someone said, Swami, Purusha Suktam. He just threw one, he was looking at everybody, he just threw one glance at me. But that kind of, you realize it when Swami looks at you, it kind of stays with you. So that was there. And then we took Pad Namaskar, everything was over. We came back to Puttaparthi. And one evening, Swami was talking to the boys in general in the portico. And Swami just suddenly mentioned these 4 lines. I was sitting in the front. Swami looks at me and says, hey, Tilsa? And just before I joined the institute, I was, I should not be calling myself this, but I was teaching this Purusha Suktam to a few of the youth in Vizag. And along with teaching the chanting, I was also teaching them the meaning of this one. So I was supposed to have known the meaning of this. So when Swami asked, Tilsa, I understood it to mean, do you know the meaning of this one? But my mind was completely blank. So Swami then started explaining, I have thousands of eyes. It means Sahasra Sirsha Purusha. He says, I have thousands of eyes, thousands of heads, thousands of limbs. I'm everywhere.
I can see everything. So somehow, I just felt, this whole concept of Swami as your personal God comes in. You feel there are things Swami does. It just seemed like very normal thing. He just explained the meaning of that, but he gave a personal touch in that by bringing that one statement or word, hey, Chuseva or Tilsa, something when he said, that just added that personal touch. There were so many such instances. In fact, the day when I joined the institute, I remember that was 18th of May in 1990. There was a lot of excitement around the campus because the summer course was restarting, a lot of preparations and arrangements were being made. Swami was going to the institute that day morning, and along with everyone else, all the boys who ran there, I also went, but I was slow to figure out what was happening because it was my first day. By the time I reached the institute, running barefoot through those Brindavan fields, I'm sure many of you would know what that is, and I was not used to that. So I was very slow. By the time everyone reached, they knew where to go. They went inside the auditorium and sat there because that was where Swami was coming. And I didn't know where to go, what to do. So by the time I reached the institute or those buildings, there was not a human being in sight anywhere. Didn't know where to go, what to do. I found one little window somewhere. I just went and stood by that window. That turned out to be on the institute, the auditorium, that foyer. So on the other side of that foyer, that one end of that foyer is where I was standing. Pretty soon there was an excitement around there, and Swami came down the steps on the far side, on the other side of that, from the other side of the foyer. He was talking to some people there, and from that end he looked at me this side here, and very purposefully Swami started walking and came all the way. He said to me, "Hey, new boy?" I said, "Yes, Swami." He said, "What is your name?" Then he said, "Amy, what course are you, what are you studying?" Or I don't know exactly what word he asked, but the answer was MBA, Swami. Then he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "From Vizag, Swami." I said, "Okay, over." He went back. He went all the way back to the other end of the foyer. And I felt so happy and grateful. I mean, of course, it was like a daze, or I was still in a bit of a shock, that Swami came all the way. But I'm still new, to understand all of these things. Swami got in the car afterwards and went back to the mandir, and in between he took a bit of round, so we had some time to run back. So this time I figured out, but I was still the last person. So by the time I reached, outside the Trai gate, Swami's car had just come. So I was one of the last boys. Swami got down a little distance before, started walking, and as he walked past me, he went maybe 2 or 3 boys ahead. He turned back and said, "Hey, Vizag boy, no?" I said, "Yes, Swami." And then in that summer course, almost every day, Swami would come to the dining hall. And every time he came to the dining hall, he would speak something or the other. Smile. If nothing else, he would at least look and smile. He used to ask something. And 3 or 4 occasions, he asked this question, "Where did you come from?" I was a bit perplexed. He knows, I already told him, he asked me. So, but I kept answering the same thing. And then I told my father one day that Swami has been asking me this question every time. So he said, "By the way, I remember reading this in that book by Phyllis Crystal. Swami asked this question, and the answer he expects is not the physical place that you come from, but to say or to realize that we come from him." he's the God. I said, okay. So we come from you. Okay. So like the primary school boys training happens. So that was my training. I said, okay, I'm going to that next time when Swami asks, I'm ready. I will answer this. The next day, I think either that same day or the next day, Swami changed the question. And this time he said, hey, where is your friend? Now, this was not a question I was prepared for. So I said, Swami, he must be behind somewhere. So during that time I had no friends. I was not even 1 week old in that place. So I had no friends really. But you know how we misuse this word called friend. You know, someone you met yesterday, 1 hour ago is a friend. So there was this one boy who was like me. He was also an engineer and was working, and he was with me in the, for the interviews and the group discussions on the thing. So I thought Swami was referring to him. So I said, Swami, he must be somewhere behind. I think our Ravi Kumar sir, who is currently the warden in Vrindavan, he said, hey, when Swami says, who is your friend? You should say, Swami, you're my friend. So I was now completely armed. Where did you come from? From you, Swami. Who is your friend? You, Swami. Swami stopped asking both of those questions. How does all this help in building faith? It was giving me the comfort and the confidence, the kinship as we call it. Because unless you feel that connect with Swami, how do you put your faith? Because there is this stupid mind that keeps coming in between and tries to reason every time and say, I need proof. So Swami did all that. He did all that to build that comfort for me. Summer course got over. We were all ready to go back to Puttaparthi. And the way it happened was, there were these, we had hired these RTC buses, APS RTC buses. And we had about, I think, 30 buses that would take all the students from Vrindavan to Puttaparthi campus. And that particular day of the last day of that summer course happened to be a Sunday. And you know, Sunday, the Rahu Kalam is 4:30 to 6. And we were to start after lunch. So we would have reached during that Rahu Kalam time. Now, my family, my father comes from Anantapur. And by the way, my father studied in the same school where Swami studied. So in that region of Anantapur district, Rahu Kalam is very important. And Swami obviously looks at Rahu Kalam. And for me, Rahu Kalam was the only thing that I was worried about. So I calculated it used to take about 3.5 odd hours to go from Vrindavan to Puttaparthi. So I calculated that we will be reaching somewhere between or around 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock, which means in the Rahu Kalam time. And I would be entering the hostel with Rahu Kalam, which I did not want to do. So I started planning. I said, I won't enter the hostel, I will stay outside. Now that's easy, I thought. But then your monkey mind comes in again and says, but it will look really odd. You're a postgraduate student. You're sitting outside. Everyone who's passing by will come and ask you, now I got to know the term brother. So everyone will come and say, brother, why are you sitting here? Can I help you? No, there is Rahu Kalam, so I won't come in now. No, people will laugh at me if I do this. So I should not. So what is the solution? So I said, that's okay. I will leave my bags outside and I will go for a walk. And as if someone heard me, one of the boys, he came and started talking to me. And he just on his own, he started saying, there are so many restrictions. He was one of the new boys as well. Apparently he figured out, he learned this, that there are a lot of restrictions. He says, you cannot step out of the hostel compound. And if you have to step outside, you need to take permission from the warden. So immediately I started thinking, oh, that means I can't go for my walk that I was thinking I will do. So that got shelved. So this way I was so worried, and this on and on endlessly. Anyway, I thought, I did not pray to Swami explicitly and say, Swami, please help me. I did not do that. But, the loving Swami hears everything. He knows everything. So he provides a solution. So the solution was, out of the 30 buses, one bus. So each one of us was assigned a particular bus number. So there was a bus number, and each one was, it's not like you randomly get into any bus. So the MBA boys were assigned to one particular bus. And out of the 30 buses, one bus does not turn up because there was a tire problem with that. So they had to change the tire of that bus, and then it would come. And then it had to come. So finally that bus came at around 3:45, I think, 3:30, 3:45. So that completely solved my problem of Rahu Kalam. And Swami came out early that day. We were all in our color clothes because we thought that's the journey thing. Swami came out early and not expected. Immediately we all stood in one line there. Swami looked at us and said, Yemi, what kind of clothes are you all wearing? We were not in white clothes. But anyway, we all made a little path for Swami. When Swami came to me, he looked at me and smiled. Didn't say anything. He just looked at me and smiled. I was very happy. I smiled back at Swami, and because I knew in my heart that at that time the thing that was bothering me and worrying me was the Rahu Kalam thing. Now, why am I mentioning this? This is a very small, trivial, honestly, this is a very trivial incident. When I look back, I feel very silly of myself. But the point is, at each stage in our life, we are faced with challenges which, when you look at it from a bigger picture perspective, when you look back at it, it seems like that was a trivial incident. When we are going through something, at that point, that incident, that situation seems like the most important thing. Swami sorted that, admitted that is a small, simple incident, but the way he sorted it out was very interesting. Not only did he make sure that that fear was taken care of, he also gave me an extra darshan, and plus he acknowledged that he knew and that he solved that problem for me. So throughout my life of the last so many years, there have been several such instances where, call them small, big, there's nothing big, frankly, thankfully. Like Swami once said to Professor Anil Kumar, there are no, for my devotees, for my boys, there are no emergencies. He will have taken care of it even before it came to a situation where it would become an emergency. So he sorted that out. He's nipped that in the bud. Therefore, there is no emergency. What we are facing today are minor, small incidents. I'm sure by Swami's grace, all of us are keeping healthy and safe and happy. But whatever happens, we should have that faith that this is Swami doing it. But 2 years ago, when I was about to join Axis Bank in UK, another boy, not me, Swami came in the dream of another boy whom I know. And in that boy's dream, I'm going up to Swami, taking Pad Namaskar and telling Swami that I'm joining the next day. And it was the next day that I was going to join work. And then Swami looks at me and says, banking, happy? Very good, very good. And then Swami makes this very beautiful statement. He says, Dene wala Swami, lene wala bhi Swami. No, dene wala bhi Swami, lene wala bhi Swami. The one who gives is Swami, the one who takes is also Swami. I was feeling happy that I got that job out of quote unquote my merit. my suitability, my CV, my track record, everything else. You feel happy. But Swami clarified, it is not your merit, but my grace. And this is what happens every time in our life and with all of us. Everything happens, he does it, he is the doer, he is the one who is speaking, he is the one who is listening, and yet we feel we are doing something. We got something because of our skill or greatness, I think that's the lesson that keeps coming back. So the more you join the dots, the more you will realize that he is the doer and everything is happening by his grace. And therefore we have a lot to be grateful for. So how do we show our gratitude? The simple thing, Swami says, is do what I say. His word is Vedam. His word is his command. The ideal thing to do is do as he does. But if we cannot do that, at least do as he says. So there was this, soon after we joined, or early, maybe around the July, August time, shortly after we joined, there is this Suprabhatam is a big challenge for everybody. It was a challenge before I joined. It was a challenge during the time that I was there. And I'm sure it is a challenge even today. So it is an eternal, perennial challenge. I used to go some days. To be honest, I used to go most of the days. Not that I didn't know anything about the significance, nothing at all. Just some teacher would come and wake us up. I was just too scared not to go because a teacher has come and woken us up. That's all. One particular day, I don't know what happened. I did not go for Suprabhatam. That evening, Swami comes out. I was sitting in maybe the third or fourth row in the portico. Swami stands in the front and said, "Hey, who all did not go for Suprabhatam today? Raise your hands." So, half-heartedly, obviously you can't lie. So I put my hand. Swami was looking around, who all will raise their hands. So when I put my hand up, he suddenly stopped. "Hey, nu polega." So he said, "Hey, you did not go." He looked very surprised. "You did not go?" I said, "No, Swami." And then he said, "Do you know why I tell you to go for Suprabhatam?" So I thought, he's going to now tell us why, what is the significance. I'm reasonably sure none of you will guess, or most of you may not guess the answer that Swami gave. He said, "Because I'm telling you to." That's all. Simple as that. Why should you go for Suprabhatam? Because I am telling you to go. Do this because I have told you to do. You don't need to apply your logic and your intelligence and common sense in that and say, should I do this? Should I not do this? None of that is needed. Another time, the other thing Swami says is, don't talk unnecessarily. This is another big pain point for the boys. We keep sitting there and chatting and talking, and Swami says, don't talk, don't talk, don't talk. We don't listen. So it happened one particular day, and this happened during the time. So after my MBA, I stayed back for 1 year in Puttaparthi. And that's if I get to that, I will tell you some of the lessons that I learned during that, but that was a great phase of that 1 year that I've learned so many things. But one of the things was, I was talking to the boy who was sitting next to me. He was an MBA student as well. So I was explaining something about the MBA subject. So it was not a random gossip talk and none of that. So Swami was in the interview room at that time. Some interviews were happening. Swami normally, when he finishes interviews, he used to go into the bhajan hall. And, and then when everyone has cleared, he will go back inside. Occasionally, he would come and, walk in the upper portico and be talking to some of the VIPs. That particular day, Swami came and was standing just behind, just in front of the pillar, where some of our boys used to sit. There is one gentleman called Kaldas who used to be sitting there. Swami was standing right there, and I was right there in that first row. So Swami was standing maybe 2-3 feet away from me. And as he took the kerchief and was wiping his face, Swami was giving me one hard stare. So initially, I was very happy. Swami is looking at me, but then very quickly I realized that this is not looking, this is staring. There's a big difference. So I thought something is wrong. So I said, I was praying, Swami, please forgive me. I don't know, I must have done some mistake. Please forgive me, Swami. But Swami was in a mood to teach me a lesson. So he was really staring at me for a long time. He just kept looking. I think that was better than any laser treatment. He would have wiped out a lot of my karmas with that one look. He threw the handkerchief and started walking back, and I felt relieved. But he didn't go inside the interview room. He came down, stood right in front of me and said, "Hey, why do you keep talking all the time?" And he was so stern. This was not the way he would normally tell the boys. It was not like that. It was a very, very stern, very clear, stern message that he wanted to give. Why do you keep talking all the time? Where am I, Ra? I said, I am here. He pointed to where I was sitting. I am there, pointing to the interview room where he was physically at the time. He said, I am here, I am there, I am everywhere. I'm always watching you. Yeah. Every time I think about that incident, the omnipresence of Swami and the fact that he is with me keeps coming back very strongly. And he gives these experiences as well. I was traveling to Germany when I was in India, about I think 3 years ago. I was traveling to Germany from Bombay. I normally don't talk to the people sitting next to me on the flight. But that day I was talking to this person who was, for some reason, she mentioned that she's going on a walk alone on the Alps. And she said, that's my meditative time. And somehow that conversation came up to Swami. So I started talking to her. She was asking a lot of questions about who is Swami and what is his teachings and everything. So I was talking a lot about Swami's teachings to her. And then I just thought to myself, I just went up, I just talked to a stranger who doesn't know anything about Swami, and I was speaking to her about Swami, telling her about Swami's teaching. Did I maybe overdo it? Did I become kind of too over enthusiastic and talk too much? Should I not have spoken all that? And I was thinking to myself, and I said, Swami, I don't know if what I have done is right or wrong. I got into the hotel. The next morning, this was the evening, the next day morning, I get into the taxi to go to my first meeting. German guy. As soon as I get in the taxi, he says, oh, you're from India. He says, do you know Sai Baba? I mean, think of it. What are the chances of a taxi driver in Germany, in Frankfurt, sorry, that was Munich, in Munich, knowing about Sai Baba and asking me, and then he says, tell me, did you see Sai Baba? So we end up talking all the way through that journey, of which took about 20 minutes. I talk about Swami, and then, so I just thought, weird. Yesterday I was talking about Swami, today. And then it occurred to me, yesterday, after when I was getting back, I was wondering if I did the right thing talking about Swami. And so maybe this is Swami's way of telling me that he's approved, or, well, let's say approved, or he's at least happy with whatever has happened. one more reinforcer from a faith perspective. Talking of gratitude, I remember an incident where in the same summer course, I think it was in the second year summer course time, I saw everybody with cameras were getting a privileged place and they were able to move around, walk around. Well, we ordinary mortals were walking through normal long queues. So I thought I devised a plan, a scheme where I could get hold of a camera. So I made a deal with one of the boys who had a camera and said, you give me your camera for a day. He said, okay. So I put the role in that and I was kicking away to glory. I was very happy. We were sitting in the dining hall. Swami's table was here, and I was the first person across from where Swami was sitting. So I was sitting there and clicking. Brahmarpanam was happening, and I was Swami was giving nice poses. He was sitting like this, and he was looking like this and smile. So he was giving nice poses, and I was clicking. I was very happy. Brahmarpanam finished, everyone started eating, and Swami got up. He eats very little, so whatever little he was eating, he would eat. He ate that and started walking. So he went, I was sitting towards Swami's left. He turned towards his right, walked to that side, and then he came down to where I was sitting. And he just stood and was looking at me. And I was just looking up at Swami because I was midway eating. I could not touch Swami's feet. And Swami just said, Brahmarpanam Bhaktito Cheppali. So you should say Brahmarpanam with the proper devotion. I was busy clicking pictures during the time. So Swami said, Brahmarpanam Bhaktito Cheppali. And sometimes when you think of these little but very profound instances where he shows his omnipresence, he shows his love for you. Yes, I made a mistake doing the clicking, it was inappropriate, but he did not punish me, he did not do any of those, right? He was very kind. And talking of punishment, I remember an incident where after the first vacation time, we went back home, and I was on the way back. In the train, there was one couple sitting in front of me. So they said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Puttaparthi. Oh, very good. We are also going to Puttaparthi. Very good. Hey, do you get, I did not say that I'm studying there. So during the course of that conversation, then, I mentioned to them. So they said, oh, you're studying there. That's so nice. Do you get Pada Namaskar of Swami anytime? It was already 3 or 4 months since we had joined. And I'm being honest, and Swami knows this. When they asked that question, I thought, Pada Namaskar is like normal. I mean, I get Pada Namaskar every day. If Swami talks, that is good. But even talk is not sufficient. He should take you inside the interview room and talk. By that time, already some 2 or 3 times he had called. So interview is the thing. Your benchmark is there. Pada Namaskar is... But that Pada Namaskar is what the gods, the Devas and Devatas and everybody else have been craving for and pining for. It is that lotus feet whom that Annamacharya, the great saint, described as that feet is not any ordinary feet. It is that Brahma Kadigina Padamu, he says. It is that feet which have been, those are the feet that have been washed by Lord Brahma himself. That is the greatness of that. But we don't understand. We don't get that. Is it Pada Namaskar? I get Pada Namaskar every day. Now this happened. I reached the next day. when I was sitting down for the evening darshan, the next day evening darshan was the first time that I was reaching. This was still vacation, holiday time. So one of the boys who was, I think, sitting in front of me or next to me somewhere, he said, yesterday evening, you know, brother, yesterday evening, Swami said nobody should touch his feet. And Swami was, for some reason, Swami was angry. So this was after my stupidity. No one should touch his feet, Swami said. So, you know, I mean, each one of us, Swami is very kind and loving to us. He makes each one of us feel special. So I thought, okay, Swami says don't touch, but that's all right. I will take Padma because I have just come back from vacation. It's like my, you know, like you have these diplomats who take charge or something. They have this presentation of the credentials thing. So that's like my way of namaskar. I will take namaskar of Swami. So in my mind, I had decided, although he told me, I decided in my mind that I will take namaskar. I was, I think, the fourth person or the third or the fourth person in that, along that path in that portico. I don't know how many of you remember that structure in which we used to be seated. So we would leave a central passage for Swami. Along that central passage, I was the third or the fourth person. Swami started walking in between in that passage. I was ready to touch Swami's feet. The boy who was sitting across the passage in front, he probably thought the same thing, that Swami says it, but it doesn't mean. And he touched Swami's feet. In one swift move, Swami held that boy's collar, lifted him up in one single swift move and said, get out. And for the next 1 week, that boy was not even allowed inside Prashanti Nilayam. Forget darshan, no Pad Namaskar. He was not even allowed inside. He became an outcast. Swami was so angry, or, you know, wrong word to use, but Swami was so unhappy. With that, obviously I did not touch. I did not now dare to touch Swami's feet. But this is how, that was a huge lesson for me in how not to take anything for granted. Again, you know, your today's Corona situation, once again, is a reminder to all of us not to take anything for granted, to be grateful. So how do we be grateful? Do Brahmarpanam properly. That's being grateful. You do whatever Swami tells you, Suprabhatam, or he tells you to talk less, he tells you to do Namasmaran, whatever he tells us, we do that. That is our expression of gratitude to Swami. Everything we do with devotion, because Swami has told us to do, just do it because of that. That is an expression of gratitude. So with these twin legs of faith and gratitude, we can walk this path of spirituality. And then we will be able to, you know, do what Swami says, that follow the master, the 4 Fs, follow the master, face the devil, fight to the end, and finish the game. I remember, I think it was Brother Sainath who recently said, it is foolish of us to expect that there will be no obstacles in life. There will be obstacles, there will be challenges. But with the master, we will be able to fight to the end and finish the game. And I have often been wondering about, what is this finish the game? What is the end game? Swami has given us, it's very nice to remember, reminisce over these experiences and you know, instances of Swami's love. It makes us feel very good for 5 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes 1 day. And then what? We go back to the same life, we go back to the same worries, we go back to the same way of doing things. What is it that Swami is really expecting out of us? So it was one day Swami called me for an interview. There were, I think, one or two others, and then there was his vice chancellor, controller, registrar. So there were about 5 of us in the interview room. And Swami was doing some work. So we were just sitting for some time. So in that time, my mind was racing and I was thinking, okay, so today I'm going to ask Swami all this. And suddenly Swami looks up and asks, hey, what is self-confidence? That was not what I was thinking about. So it again put me a bit off balance, but I said, Swami, confidence in the self, as in the God, that the God in you is doing things and will do things. He looked satisfied and he started talking about, and then he asked, what is the meaning of Sakshatkara? I said whatever my understanding was of Sakshatkara. And Swami then started speaking for the next maybe more than an hour about Sakshatkara. For almost more than 1 hour, 15 minutes until the bhajan started, he was talking about Sakshatkara. I don't remember all of the things. Unfortunately, I haven't made notes. They say it's gone into my subconscious memory for use at some future point. I would like to believe that, but a couple of things that I remember Swami said was, Chitta Suddhi is very important. So he said, all these things that you're doing, when I tell you to do these things, you're doing these as a way to purifying your mind. And unless you purify your mind, any activity you do becomes useless. So he gave this example of how in a vessel, if there has been curd in that vessel, and he said if you don't wash it properly, if you use it to boil milk, he says that milk will get spoiled. Or if there is some form of dirt in the in that vessel which you are using for cooking, then it will spoil the taste of whatever you cook. So he said, you need to make sure that the vessel is clean, and therefore your mind has to be clean. All these things that you're doing, this is when you do Namasmaran, when you do these bhajans, this is you're doing all this to purify your mind. So the end game is to realize that Sakshatkara. There was this one again a very beautiful instance where in Sai Vrindavan we were all sitting, and this is the time when I was, as I said, I was waiting, and at that time just before the exams for the Vrindavan students, one of the boys had a big book on accountancy. Swami saw that book and he said, it's such a big book. Tell me, what subject is it? He said, accounting, Swami. Easy, na? He said. No, Swami, it's very difficult. I could completely relate to that boy. I did MBA finance. My balance sheet would never balance. So I understood the predicament of this boy, accounting difficulty. So everyone was very eagerly waiting. They were thinking that maybe Swami will now either give them some questions, reveal some questions, or say something useful. But Swami has a way of taking you to a very different level from a seemingly mundane situation. So Swami then looked at that and said, how many questions will you get from this? Such a big book. Swami, there will be 12 questions. Wow, 12 questions. Yeah, so this boy thought that is too much. And he said, no, Swami, we don't have to answer all the 12. 2 we can leave in choice, only 10 we have to answer. Swami said, from such a big book, only 10 questions? How will you prepare? So this boy was like, Swami, this is the difficulty. Now you know what challenges we face in life. It's easy for you, Swami. So Swami then said, my exam is very simple. I will only ask you one question. My exam is very simple. I will only ask you one question. And the best part is, I will tell you the answer to that question also. So my exam is very simple. One single question. I will tell you the answer to that question. The only thing I will not tell you is when I will ask you that question. So what is that question? The question is, who are you? All this, where do you come from? Who is your friend? All this is really a preparation for that question of who are you? If you know who you are, as Swami says, from a spiritual perspective, then you know where you have come from, you know who is your friend, everything else gets answered. That is like the mother of all questions. That is the one question he will ask. And he gave the answer also to us that day. Who are you? I am that, Soham. He gave that answer, I am that. He said, all you have to do is just remember that. We believe and behave like, I am here, I am born to be an investment banker. I am born to be the Salesforce specialist, or I am born to be some finance controller of some company. The company is working only, existing only because I am doing this great work. What we forget and what we don't seem to realize, despite Swami reminding us time and again, is that the primary purpose of our life is not to be a banker or an insurance guy or a technology person or a scientist or a teacher or anything. The primary reason for our existence, as he repeatedly said, Jantunam Narajanma Durlabham, is for us to realize the purpose of life. Why we have come here is to realize who we are. Who am I? That is the only question that we need to, that is the syllabus. Everything else that we are focusing on is out of syllabus, but that is the thing we are focusing on. And the one thing that we need to really spend time on is the one we are not spending time on. This is the predicament and this is the sad situation of our lives today. So Swami keeps reminding us from time to time and again and again. Now this thing about where did you come from? I thought I will say from you, Swami. Where are you from? From you, Swami. So there was this one of the boys, he's also in UK now. He's originally from Hyderabad. So during our second year time, I think Swami went to inaugurate the Kalyan Mandap in Hyderabad, that's Satyasai Nigamagam. Swami was very happy with the youth of Hyderabad who were doing those, providing the escort on the motorbikes. They cleared the way. Swami was so proudly talking about it. So a couple of days before that, I think 2-3 days before that, Swami was asking these primary school boys who come for birthday, hey, where did you come from? And they say, from you, Swami. So this boy thought, Swami, these boys are trained. They are being tutored by the teachers to say from you. So they say it. They don't know. You ask me, I will also say it. This happened some 2-3 days before. Swami was talking very proudly about this Hyderabad boys. And Swami suddenly looks at this boy and says, hey, where are you from? And now very proudly he said, from Hyderabad, Swami. And 2-3 days back, he thought he will say, from you. I will say from you, Swami, that's very easy. Swami said nothing more. Nothing need be said. The message was loud and clear. So this is how, we end up being. This corona situation, as bad as it is, and I feel really sad to see all the people who are suffering because of this corona situation. But this is a great reminder and eye-opener for us. A very important phase in our lives where it's time for us to realize all these things. Have faith in Swami. Faith in Swami means accepting whatever comes our way. Have gratitude to everything, towards everything, but most importantly, to Swami. Conduct our lives in a way that he has asked us to do things. Do things because he's asking us to do it. Simple, no other reason. We don't need any other justification, logic, explanation. Don't need to apply our mind. Just do it. Just do it. And be grateful for everything that we have. So with this, I want to stop. I offer my very loving pranams once again at Swami's lotus feet and express my gratitude for everything that Swami is doing, has been doing, and will continue to do, and pray that all of us, brothers and sisters, all of us are pilgrims on this path. I pray that all of us reach our goal, our destination, the divine lotus feet of Swami, to be one with him at some point. Sairam, thank you.
Sairam Giridhar, thank you so much for this session. And as you rightly said, faith and gratitude are the two walking sticks for our journey in spirituality. And you beautifully said that the faith is never halfway through. It is binary. It is there or it is not there. And it is Swami who gets us ready for building up this faith with these small, small questions like, where are you from? Who's your friend? To ultimately answer the final question, who we are. And that's the open book question. And the answer is given by the God. But still, we all have to wait for the right time for that question to be asked. So thank you so much for the session. But before we end, there are a couple of questions on the chat panel that devotees across the world would like to ask. And one of the questions that we have is, can you give us some more examples on gratitude? And what is Swami said more on the gratitude?
Examples on gratitude. I mean, I'm just wondering what, gratitude is,
like you said, Swami clearly said that gratitude is explicit doing what Swami says without asking any question. Like, for example, Suprapatam, he just said, I want you to go and do it. So can you explain more on those lines?
See, there have been a number of instances, again, if we could answer this by way of examples, where Swami has asked people to do things. For instance, I remember that story of, just do it because Swami is telling you to do it, right? I remember my grandmother telling me the story of Raja Reddy Garu, this great person who was so fortunate to be close to Swami. Apparently, there was this, so my grandmother and Raja Reddy Garu's mother were known to each other. And so this was told by her. So there was one instance, one situation where there was a pigeon on the top, and Swami just asked, and Raja Reddy Garu was right underneath that pigeon. So Swami said, that one is now going to drop. The droppings will be coming now. I want you to open your mouth. So, we try to avoid the pigeon droppings falling on our shirt, our head, or, we try to avoid. Swami asked this person to open his mouth and receive it. And this is what his mother mentioned. He apparently, without a question, without a doubt, he did not think about that pigeon dropping, it'll be dirty, it is yuck, and none of that. He just opened his mouth and sat there the pigeon droppings fell, it got transformed. When it entered his mouth, it was the elaichi. Fragrant, nice elaichi. Swami, I remember Swami saying in the discourses, during the Krishnashtami time, he said, there was these, the Gopikas used to carry water from some well or somewhere, and they would usually put 2 or 3 of those pots on their heads. So, the first one is easy to put, the second one, they would somehow manage. Third one, it gets too high, right? The hands can't reach. So one of them asked Krishna, please help put this one on my head. And Krishna refuses. He says, I'm not here to put burden on your head. I'm here to take burden off your head. That may be very symbolic, but we should have the faith again that whatever situation we are put into, Swami will give us the strength to go through that situation. So we need to have that faith. And when we have gone through that situation, we need to have the gratitude to Bhagwan that he has taken us through and or out of that whichever way. Now, bear in mind one thing. The outcome and the way you come out may not be the way you expected it to be. You will want it to be in this one particular route, but he may do it in a different way. The faith should be strong that you will accept whatever route path he takes you through. The gratitude should be unquestioning that whatever be the outcome, whether it is you the way you want it or not, that you remain grateful. These are the 2 things that we need to develop. It's a work in progress from my perspective.
Yes, very nicely said that these are not 2 exclusive events, but these are interlinked. Faith and gratitude go hand in hand. Giri, I remember you are one of the first few batches of MBA, and Swami had given a lot of, talks. He has spoken to you a lot in your initial days when the MBA course was started. Can you share one or 2 of those instances where Swami had explained in lucid terms about MBA or whatever those small sessions that you used to have in the early days of MBA?
This is a googly and a bouncer from Jaideep, but I will try and again pray to Swami to help me remember something. So one instance I remember in one of the interviews, Swami was talking about leadership and how it is essential to do the right things, to follow the dharma, or to do what you have to be doing, but wait for the right time. Sometimes he said you may have to wait for the right time to do things. And Swami gave this example of the former Russian president, Mikhail Gorbachev. He was the one who presided over the end of Cold War. He was the one who was, or the president of USSR at the time when the Cold War ended. And he was the one who was effectively, you could say, responsible for the breakdown of that Soviet Federation into all these so many different countries. Swami was praising him, speaking very nicely of him, and saying the things that were done by the previous regimes was not right, were oppressive. They did not allow freedom for praying and worshipping. They knew what they were doing was wrong, but they kept doing it for selfish reasons. And Gorbachev knew that that was wrong, but he did not oppose all of that initially. He was doing what he was told to do. He was given a task, he did that. I remember this because once, sorry for digressing, Swami used to, those days, Swami used to, for after these festivals like a Krishnashtami or any of these festivals, Ganesh Chaturthi, Swami would distribute sweets. Nowadays, or after, the last 10 years or last 5 or 10 years of, Swami physical presence, the sweets used to come from somewhere in the East Prashanti and they would get distributed. In our time, it was not like that. The sweets would all be kept inside the kitchen or in the room inside. And so we would go collect it, and there would be, let's say, sweet boxes. We would collect those and then go distribute that to all the boys. And the boys who would distribute those sweets were picked by Swami. So Swami used to kind of individually pick each person. And so we would go in, take the box, and wherever. Sometimes Swami used to tell us where, oh, you go here, you go there, or you leave this here. So depending on what is told, we would go do that. So there was one instance where he told me to distribute in the upper, to the students. And I saw that, when I was doing the distribution in that veranda there, I saw that no one distributed in the upper portico. For the, the people whom we call the elders, whom we call the VIPs, right? No one distributed there. So, and the practice used to be that after the sweet distribution, everyone goes inside the interview room. We all assemble there, sit down. Swami talks for some time, Pad Namaskars, everything happens, all very good. So sometimes, when you feel comfortable and familiar with Swami, he gives that comfort, right? Then, so that day, I said, as soon as the door was closed, I said, Swami, the upper portico, nobody distributed sweets. Swami, immediately Swami's, mood, everything changed. Said, Atika prasangam, buddha pota, buddhi ledu, everything he started shouting at me. And Atika prasangam means you are going beyond your remit. You have been told to distribute sweets here in this place. You shut up and go do that job. Don't overdo things. Don't imagine and pretend that the world is running on your shoulders. That is effectively the message that he gave. See, this is the problem with, me and some of us. What Gorbachev apparently did that time was he did what he was told to do. Put his head down and just work. Don't worry too much about what else is happening. I do my job as an offering to Swami. I remember another instance where when Swami called us for an interview, one of the boys said, Swami, I think this boy was from Delhi or somewhere else. Definitely not Bombay. He said, Swami, I'm not able to feel your presence in, I think, Delhi. I'm not able to feel your presence in Delhi, so I'm not able to do Swami's work. Swami said, when you're doing your regular work, that is Swami's work. Make that as Swami's work. So whatever I am given as a task to do, I put my head down and do that with sincerity, dedication, as an offering. But Swami said, don't forget what the principles, what the truth and what the dharma is. So he said, Gorbachev was like that. He, while being through the system, he remembered all of that and he still implemented that when he got the chance. So when he became a leader, he implemented what was the right thing. So he said, similarly, I want you boys to be like that. Don't become over enthusiastic in your initial years. Wait till you reach the top and then you do what is the right thing according to Swami's teaching. Effectively, he didn't say that according to Swami's teaching, but that's my understanding. We do things according to Swami's teaching. So that is one definitely a powerful lesson that I remember, which Swami spoke to us about that time.
Very rightly said, Girdhar, because I also remember one Swami had said, a good quality of a leader is he's actually a follower. Unless you follow, you will not be able to lead it. And for all of us, we are all blessed that we have our Swami, our Lord, to lead us, and we just have to follow, whether it's a tough time or good times. Just express our gratitude to him and follow. So with this beautiful thought, we would like to end today's session. We will end with Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. So I would request Brother Jai Shankar to lead us to the final prayer.
Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय। साईं राम।